What the Wolf Wants, Chapter 9, The Penthouse, The Revelation, and Everyone Getting Sorted, being the final chapter. The Goff House operation concluded at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday, when Toby Thornwood, who had been told about the stakeout by Viv in a moment of what she would later characterize as catastrophic informational generosity, crashed through the back hedge of the target property. Toby, in full wolf form, which triggered every motion sensor on the premise, and created a diversion so total and so unexpected that the two ATF agents in the secondary position were able to move on the primary entrance with complete surprise, while Orsino and Viv managed what was now a wolf incident on the south side of the property. What Viv did not want anyone to know was that she had to tamp down her own wolf, and tamp her down hard. Her wolf wanted to shift. Her wolf was tired of being an observer, and she longed to do what Toby was doing, pure freedom of expression, pure chaos, pure joy. The suspect, a man named Aldous Fitch, was so thoroughly occupied with the kind of question of what kind of very large dog had just come through his hedge that he did not notice the federal agents at his front door until they introduced themselves. The arrest was clean. The case documentation was excellent. The motion sensor footage, which Orsino had quietly ensured was archived before anyone could review the wolf section, would not become a part of the formal record. Toby, wrapped in Orsino's jacket, on the target property's back porch, while the agents processed the scene, said, "Oh, I was in the neighborhood." Orsino said, I know, Toby." Toby said, did it help?" Orsino said, "Operationally? Yes. Professionally? I'm going to have to think about how to answer that. I'm going to have to think about that for some time." The beanie had survived the hedge. Everyone had expected this. The St. Agatha's Academy Autumn Fundraiser occupied the 24th floor penthouse of Liberty Towers on a Friday evening in late November, and Olivia Thornwood hosted it with the composed precision of a woman who had been running difficult rooms since she was 18, and begged her parents to help her, to let her try her hand at what she euphemistically called event planning, although everyone knew it was orders of magnitude more impactful than that. She had heart, not just marketing acumen. She understood that a fundraiser is, at its very soul, a story you tell about why something matters, and if you tell that story correctly, the room does the rest. The penthouse was high-ceilinged and spare and beautiful, the kind of space that had been designed to hold a view, and that view was Tulsa at night, the modest skyline amber and white, the Arkansas River a dark curve in the distance, carrying the city's light on its surface in long, wavering lines, the Gathering Place Park a dark green sweep along the west bank. The room held perhaps 40 people, canapes, good wine, the soft noise of a gathering that is going well. There is a sense of an omega still alive and exuding the love and acceptance energy that the great have. Viv arrived from the south elevator bank at 8:14. She was wearing a jacket from the Brooktown boutique on Peoria, the one Dee had pointed to in November, the one from the display rack that nobody had fully described yet, which turned out to be a deep teal western cut blazer with just enough embroidery to make a statement and just enough restraint everywhere else to make it wearable. She had her ATF consultant lanyard in her pocket, out of habit, and then put it back into her pocket deliberately when she remembered that her contract had technically concluded the previous night. She was Vivienne Calloway again, and she had been for about 12 hours, and she was still adjusting. Seb arrived from the North Elevator Bank at 8:15. He was wearing a flannel over a dark shirt and the kind of confidence that comes from not trying to be anyone other than yourself, and he looked from across the room exactly like his sister. Olivia said, "Oh." It was a small word for the amount of work it was doing. It contained, "I see," and it also contained, "Of course," and it also contained, "So that is what has been happening." And underneath all of those, something quieter and more specific that she would not say out loud for another 20 minutes. Malcolm said, "There are 2 of them." Toby from the canapé table said, "Huh, yeah, I can see that now." He ate a canapé. He did not appear troubled. Drew said, Wait. So at the kayak race," and then he stopped because he was running a calculation, and the calculation was taking a moment. Fest, who had been doing fine in his suit and his conversation with the parents, looked at the 2 identical people standing at opposite sides of the room, and he looked at Maurer, and he said, should I? And Maurer said, without looking up from her clipboard, "You're fine, Philip. You're fine. Stay where you are." Viv and Seb had found each other across the room, and now were standing together near the south windows, which made the situation, if anything, clearer. They were both wearing expressions that meant, "Yes, we know. Give us a moment." The room gave them the moment, partly out of social grace, and partly because everyone was still processing. Maura materialized at Olivia's elbow with the quiet efficiency of a woman who has been stage managing this scene in her head for 2 weeks, and who knows exactly how it goes. Maura, quietly to Olivia, "Vivienne Calloway. Goes by Viv. Petroleum geologist, ATF consultant. Contract concluded last night. She had a shifter council warrant from Pawnee County that made her travel under her brother's name to avoid it. The warrant was dismissed 8 days ago without anyone telling her. She has been Vic Calloway for the past 3 weeks, which is how long you have known her." Olivia said, after a long silence, looking at Viv across the room, "She's a shifter." Maurer said, Yes." Olivia said, "And the letters were," Maurer said, "Orsino's. The geology was his. Yes." Olivia, something settling quietly into place, said, "And Sebastian." Maurer said, "That is her twin. Arrived Wednesday. Knew about the situation within 20 minutes. Has been navigating it carefully." Olivia said, with the ghost of something genuine in the corners of her expression, 3 hours of walking with my brother's field notebooks." Maurer, "He asked good questions." Olivia paused. "Yes, he did." Viv crossed the room to Olivia with the deliberate pace of a geologist approaching a formation she has been circling for 3 weeks, knowing what she'll find, needing to confirm it anyway, prepared for the ground to shift underfoot, and prepared to keep her footing regardless. Orsino, who had been standing near the east windows watching this with the still professional attention he had directed at situations that required accurate observation, did not move toward her. He waited. He was very good at waiting, when waiting was correct. Viv to Olivia directly. My name is Vivienne Calloway. I go by Viv. I'm a petroleum geologist. For the last 3 weeks, I've been calling myself Vic, because I had a shifter council warrant I needed to manage, and Ranger Fuentes, from the Turner Turnpike, suggested it as a practical solution, and I agreed. The warrant was dismissed 8 days ago. I found this out this morning. Olivia, looking at her, the same attention she gives everything, full and clear. And the moment on the South Trail when you expressed sadness for my brother and comforted me? Viv, meeting her eyes. That was real. Olivia beat. I'm glad. I was just so afraid before. Afraid to break apart. Viv said carefully. I should also tell you that I think my brother is in love with you. Or something that will become love if you give it time. I say this not as a complication, but as information. Olivia, looking across at Seb, who was watching this conversation from a reasonable distance with the expression of a man waiting for a verdict. He walked with me for 3 hours and talked about Orion's field notebooks. Viv said, I know. Olivia said, and he asked about the Arkansas River. Viv said, well, he loves water. It's a thing with him. Olivia said, the real smile arriving again, this time hand over the mouth. And you? What do you love? Viv, with a pause in which she makes a decision, looking for just a moment toward Orsino. Well, okay. I guess I can say I love formations that are more complicated than the initial survey suggests. And what's interesting is I've been finding them everywhere lately. She paused. But then, that does not mean I like cheesy geological metaphors. Malcolm was told by Maura in the kitchen, with a small glass of bourbon as a courtesy, that the letter was not from Olivia. She did this with precision and without cruelty, which was the only way that Maura did difficult things. She said, the letter was written by people who cared about Olivia, and they thought they were helping, and the geology was technically accurate, and she hoped he would not think the entire situation had been malicious. She said Seb Calloway had given him genuine advice in the Liberty Towers lobby, and that advice was worth keeping, regardless of where it came from. Malcolm sat with this for several moments. Then he said, the smile? Maura said, yes, you can stop the smile. Yes, definitely. Definitely. He stopped it. His face, without the fixed smile, was considerably more human, tired and embarrassed, And underneath both of those, the honest expression of a man who has been wanting something for a long time and has been going about it badly. Maurer refilled his bourbon. She did not say anything else. Sometimes the most important thing a precise person can do is to stop talking. Olivia crossed the room to where Seb was standing near the canapé table, which had been significantly reduced by Toby's attendance, and stood before him with the composed directness of someone who has already done the hard work in a different conversation and is now ready for this one. Olivia said, "Sebastian." "Olivia," said Seb. Olivia said, "You walked with me for 3 hours about my brother's field notebooks." Seb responded, "They were extraordinary notebooks. He had very specific handwriting." Olivia paused. He did. He learned it from our father. You knew I thought you were a geologist." Seb said, "Yes, I'm sorry for that." Olivia considered this, and then, with the honesty that was her defining quality, said, "I don't think you are sorry. I think you are trying to manage a complicated situation carefully. And I think you mostly succeeded." Seb agreed. Mostly. Olivia, with a small, warm expression, "The part about letting things down that you'd been holding up, that was true, wasn't it? Not something you said because you thought I needed to hear it." Seb said simply, "Yes, that was entirely true." Olivia responded, "Good." And then, in the direct manner of a woman who has already decided, I'd like to continue the conversation, but at a slower pace and with correct names." Seb broke into the Seb smile, the real one that is so much warmer than Viv's and arrives faster. And he said, "I would like that. I would like it very much." Orsino found Viv near the east windows, looking at the city. The fundraiser was still running. Olivia and Seb were talking near the canapes. Mauro was circulating with her clipboard in the focused efficiency of a woman who had managed a complicated evening to its correct conclusion and was now doing the administrative wrap-up. Toby was telling what appeared to be an extended story to Drew and the school chaplain simultaneously, and Fest was doing fine. Everything was, in the specific way that Tulsa has to do things, eventually managing to be fine. Orsino stood beside Viv and looked at the city. He was, she had come to understand over 3 weeks, a man who looked at things rather than people. When he was about to say something true, the firelight, the river, the seismic profile, and now this Tulsa skyline at night. As if truth required a neutral surface to land on before it could be said aloud. After a moment, Orsino said, "The contract concluded last night." Viv said, "I know." You're not Vic Calloway anymore. I haven't been that since 6 this morning when Dee called with the warrant news. It took a few hours to feel real. Orsino paused. I knew. Before tonight. I actually think I've known since the kayak outing. Viv looked at him. You knew, and you didn't... Well, I was waiting for the right moment, which I recognize as ironic given the letters, Viv responded, trying not to be a laugh. Oh, well, that is deeply ironic. Orsino breathed. The work was real. The seismic data was real. The case was real. Everything we did in that conference room was genuine. And everything else was genuine, too. I want to be clear about that, in case I have not been clear. Viv said quietly, you've been relatively clear. Okay, good, because I would like to continue being clear with correct names at a slower pace, without it being a consulting arrangement. He was looking at the city when he said it. Then he looked at her. It was the full, unhurried look, the one she had identified the first day in the conference room as the look of a man reading something accurately, in which she understood now 3 weeks and a river and 2 seconds on a trail was also the look of a man who had stopped being careful at being read in return. Viv paused, then said, Seb is going to be absolutely insufferable about this. Orsino, with his almost smile, now arriving fully, said, that's okay. I'll manage. Viv looked at the city, breathed, and said simply, Okay. Okay. The fundraiser raised $11,000 for St. Agatha's Academy. Fest, in the penultimate hour, was photographed by 3 students from the junior class who hadn't been allowed to attend as event assistants, who posted the photograph to an Instagram account with a caption that said simply, he does this sometimes, and then received within an hour 412 likes and a comment from Fest's mother in Broken Arrow that said, I know, honey, which received another 200 likes on its own. Malcolm went to his car at 9:30. He sat in it for a few minutes. He drove home. He did not email the ATF HR office that night. It was, his therapist would later tell him, a sign of genuine progress. Toby fell asleep in a penthouse chair at 10:15 with a canapé in his hand. Olivia covered him with a blanket from the hall closet and left him there because some things were not fighting over and because she loved him exactly as he was. The next day at dusk, Orsino and Viv walked down the gathering place to the river. This was not planned. They had simply ended up walking in the same direction, and neither of them suggested a different one. The park was empty and lit, and the Arkansas was doing its slow, dark thing beyond the boat dock. The zinc dam holding the water in its temporary patience just south. The city was quiet in the way that cities sometimes are at dusk, not silent, but turned inward, the amber lights reflecting the river in long, soft lines that moved with the current and went south regardless. There was a path here, that narrowed briefly around a landscaped bank. Viv had been on this path before. She knew where it narrowed. This time, Orsino reached out first. The human contact lasted more than 2 seconds. It lasted for the rest of the walk, which was to the 11th Street Bridge and back along the river in the November air, with the city doing its amber best above them and the Arkansas going south the way it always had, without consulting anyone's schedule or needing anyone's permission, simply going the way rivers do toward the thing they have always been going toward. Epilogue. Where they all ended up. Viv and Orsino. Together. She kept a consulting arrangement with the ATF Tulsa field office on a non-exclusive basis, which meant she could take other contracts and he could not write her performance reviews, both of which mattered in different ways. He stopped writing geological love letters. She occasionally missed them because she liked reading them, which she told no one except Seb, who told her this was the most Viv thing he had ever heard, and he was not wrong. Olivia and Seb. They had their first genuinely named conversation in the St. Agatha's front parlor the Monday after the fundraiser, over tea with correct introductions, which lasted 4 hours and covered Orion's field notebooks in full, the Arkansas River's aesthetic merits from both the geological and the personal perspective, and whether a wolf shifter who loves water would find the South Tulsa River trails amenable year-round, which he would. They were engaged by the following spring. The wedding was held near the Arkansas River. Toby wore the beanie. When Olivia said, "I object to that," during the rehearsal, Toby said, "You're not supposed to object at your own wedding." And Olivia said, "I'm not objecting to the wedding. Tobias and the chaplain and everyone should perhaps sit down." And Seb laughed until the chaplain had to stop and collect himself. Olivia's shifting began 3 weeks after the fundraiser on a Tuesday evening walk during the 11th Street Bridge. It was, as first shifts go, extremely well managed. Seb was there, and Viv was a phone call away, and the particular spot on the trail where it happened was private and near the river, which helped. Olivia found that her wolf form was, characteristically, composed and clear-eyed, and that it preferred the South Tulsa River trails to any other location in the city. She had, in retrospect, suspected something like this for most of her adult life. She filed it the way she filed everything, completely, practically, and without drama. Toby was awarded a ceremonial key to Hideaway Pizza by the management, who had been discussing this gesture for 3 years and decided the fundraiser story was the correct occasion. The key is not a real key. The restaurant has a security system, and Toby's access is managed through other means that nobody discusses openly. He carries the ceremonial key everywhere. He's shown it to 37 people. He will show it to you if you sit in the corner booth and order the Just a Beginner, and you give him around 40 minutes. Drew pivoted the Turner Turnpike incident into a wildly successful podcast called Unscheduled Energy Events, which covers infrastructure disasters, technological misadventures, and, in a recurring segment, things that technically weren't my fault. It is in the top 40 in its category. He released an episode about the Zinc Lake kayaking incident titled Canine Hydrotherapy and Other River Situations, in which an unnamed certified professional is described as the most competent person I've ever seen manage an ambiguous aquatic situation. The unnamed professional is Toby. Toby has listened to the episode 9 times. He considers it 100% accurate. Malcolm accepted a transfer to the ATF satellite office in Enid, Oklahoma, which is a 4-hour round trip from Tulsa and constitutes a reasonable geographic distance from the situation. He is learning pickleball. He has opinions about the scoring system, which he has emailed to the ATF HR office twice. On the third draft, he decided not to send it and went on a walk instead, which his therapist described as significant growth. He is, in the technical and particular way of a man who is embarrassed and survived it, doing better. Mara was appointed assistant headmistress of St. Agatha's Academy, effective the following January, a role that Olivia described in the announcement as overdue by at least 3 years, which was accurate. Mara updated her clipboard to a leather-bound portfolio, but otherwise did not change anything about the way she operated, which was good. Fest is still teaching drama at St. Agatha's. He has shifted involuntarily 4 more times since the fundraiser. The students have expanded the biscuit protocol to include a brief pre-rehearsal check-in and a dedicated chair near the stage door that is technically Fest's and technically also a dog bed, and no one has said anything about it because no one needs to. The Instagram account has 1,100 followers. His mother comments on everything. Patsy continues to be the operational backbone of the ATF Tulsa field office and to know everything that is going to happen before it happens. The document titled For Later now contains a second tab. She has not told anyone what is in it, and she doesn't need to. Gerald, still on Cherry Street. The Pinwheel collection has expanded by 11 units since November, including 2 that glow in the dark and 1 that plays a small tune in strong enough wind. Viv has gotten better at managing the response. It is down to a mild, elevated awareness and a slight amber quality to her eyes, and it lasts about 4 seconds. And only Orsino notices. He has never said anything about it. He holds her hand instead, which turns out to be the most effective intervention. The Tesla, still impounded. Drew's documentation remains at the bottom of Zinc Lake. The car's emergency system has been inspected twice, and no fault has been found, which the inspector noted in his report as inconclusive regarding origination of the thermal event, which is the most accurate sentence in the entire story. The jingle has not recurred. The grass along the stretch of the Turner Turnpike came back in the spring, as Oklahoma grass does, without apology, without consultation, because the land knows what it is and does not require permission to continue. And finally, the Arkansas River. It continues. It continues south, regardless, as it always has. Thank you very much. This is the end of What the Wolf Wants. The Arkansas River from the 11th Street Bridge looking south towards Zinc Lake. Dawn, not midnight. The sky is the particular pre-sunrise gray-blue of an Oklahoma November morning, the horizon just beginning to warm in the east. and on the walking trail below, two figures, small in the frame, moving south along the river. They are easy together, not trying to be anything other than what they are, not in a hurry, and they are going in the same direction. It is Viv and Orsino looking at each other. What the wolf wants. Thank you. End.